Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by Steiner Optics, CVA and Bergara Custom Barrels and Rifles, UDAP Bear Pepper Spray, Corbon Ammunition, Marathon Seat Covers, and Burris Optics and the family of Eliminator Laser Scopes. This episode has been brought to you in part by the new DeLorme InReach. Stay safe, stay in touch, and stay in reach. In the previous Alaska Adventure Series episodes, Steve had flown into the backcountry for a spring grizzly hunt, only to land in the middle of the worst spring weather in 100 years. The weather quickly turned cold with high winds, drifting snow, and temperatures well below freezing that kept the bears in their dens, extending their winter sleep. After 10 brutal days of not finding any bears, the weather warmed up enough for incoming Steve's Outdoor Adventures clients Jerry Monk and Dan MacArthur to arrive in camp. Aerial scouting finally revealed multiple bear dens in a high mountain pass, and guides quickly flew Steve West, Jerry Monk, their guide, and the camera crew in to set up a spike camp on top of several feet of snow.
Same experience, and you have a spoon.
3 days later, Jerry's dreams came true when he took a beautiful mountain grizzly in the Alaskan wilderness. The next day, the outfitter relocated Steve and his guide along with the camera crew to another mountain where 7 bear dens had been seen from the air. It was Dan MacArthur's turn, and 2 days later, on a sunny afternoon, it all came together on a rugged mountainside, and Dan made his opportunity count, taking a magnificent grizzly after a harrowing, steep mountainside stalk. But with Steve's clients tagged out and on their way home, the weather turned ugly. And the crew spent another 7 days snowed into their tents, enduring Arctic-like temperatures as 3 feet of fresh snow fell on their tents. With supplies running out, morale at an all-time low, and a 1-day window of weather good enough to fly, Steve decided to make the call and head out of the Alaskan wilderness.
But now we're back. We flew into Anchorage and caught a ride over to the Millennium Hotel where we checked in, and the next day we took a flight into the Sandy River bottom where we set up a camp directly under the snow-covered mountains where we'd been just a month before.
You want to text in with me?
This is the complete opposite of the challenges we faced in April. It's 83 degrees instead of minus 13 degrees, and 96-degree swing in temperatures. And while we're sleeping in the same bomb shelter tents, we're trading snow for sand, cold for hot, parkas for light layers, but we don't quit easy, and we were here to hunt.
June presented us with a different set of challenges. Instead of cold, it was hot, and instead of snow, there was sand.
I use the FlexTone Dominator Bugle because its adjustable latex reeds make it possible for me to make a full range of bull elk sounds. And I finish them off with the easy-to-use bite and blow booty call, the only cow call I've ever used that can make the full range of cow elk sounds. FlexTone, forged by nature. Follow Steve's Outdoor Adventures on Facebook and Twitter and keep up with all the action, as well as find out about some great giveaways that we have throughout the year.
After a scenic coastal flight in a de Havilland Beaver from Anchorage to their river bottom camp, the crew quickly sets up their camp.
There were grizzly, black bear, and wolf tracks all around our camp, and while we were setting up, a small black bear ran by. Even though it was hot, we were really optimistic about our chances for success.
This year, the weather in Alaska had been extreme. In April, the crew saw temperatures below zero and several feet of snow had fallen on their mountain camps. And now in early June, a heat wave was sweeping across most of Alaska. With temperatures in the mid-80s, bears were unlikely to move during the long daytime hours. Steve's only hope was to be in the field hunting during the final 2 hours of daylight, sit through the 2 hours of darkness, and hunt the first light before returning to camp during the heat of the day.
Well, it's really the first day of the hunt. Flew in yesterday and had to reset our clock, so to speak. You sleep all day, hunt all night. It doesn't really ever get totally dark, and that's when the bears are going to be moving. So it's about 7 o'clock tonight. Got about a half to 3/4 mile hike over here to an old cabin that we want to set up in and glass an area off the side of this mountain over here where the bears have been coming down at night. So I think Jeremy's got everything ready to go. The crew's got everything packed up. We're going that way, over to Bear City. We knew that our best chance for success was getting to the vantage points and glassing a lot of country and waiting for the bears to come out of the heavy cover. The first place we found was the old squatter's cabin that was up on stilts. It was the perfect location to see a lot of prime real estate, so we took up residence. We were just hiking out here to the old cabin for the first night of the hunt and came across these grizzly tracks, brown bear. And they're coming from over past our camp, right down this path, right to the area we're going to be hunting tonight. So they're not that old. They're not that fresh, but they're not that old. So we might get a chance to see this bird tonight. It's not a big bear. It's an average bear. And that 338 shell in there gives you a pretty good perspective of just how big a brown bear can get. This cabin reminded me of a scene straight out of Platoon or a Chuck Norris movie. So we nicknamed this place the Hooch. And as we approached it, we could tell they had been ransacked by bears. Somebody was going to have a hell of a mess to clean up.
As the final minutes of daylight start to fade, Steve and his guide Jeremy Rusink decide to hunt their way down the river back to camp and make a discovery that made both their hearts race.
These tracks were less than 2 hours old, and they came by while we were over at the Hooch and less than a quarter mile from camp. Based on the fact that this was the peak of the rut in early June, I was convinced that this was a big boar following a sow. But when they went into the heavy cover along the river bottom, we had no chance to follow them. Our only hope was that they'd come out the next day and get in the open where we could see them.
Steve and the crew spent the next 2 days hunting from the Hooch. But after no further bear sightings, guide Jeremy Rusink decided they should go a few miles downriver to a place they called the Rock, a vantage point where they could see a lot of country. This segment is sponsored by Lights Out Trail Camera by Wild Game Innovations. The Sportsman's Guide, the largest supply of name brand hunting gear at closeout prices.
The rock was just a couple of miles away from camp, and it was a great hunt down the river because we cut several fresh bear tracks. I really felt like it was just a matter of time before we had a close encounter with a big coastal grizzly.
After a long sit and no bears spotted, Steve and Jeremy start hunting their way back to camp. When they make another startling discovery.
That's a size 14 shoe on a grizzly track, and he's a size 13. That's the bear we're looking for right there. They're just a little bit old, a day or two, but the bear we're looking for is in the valley somewhere. Just gonna go hunting. Gotta try to find him. That's the bear we're looking for. I really felt like it was so hot and there was so much heavy cover that the bears weren't traveling much. The odds were definitely against us.
Closed captioning for Steve's Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by Kershaw Knives.
Take the pledge to be a responsible gun owner. I did. While we were in camp loading up our packs for another hike down to the rock, a black bear popped out of the brushy river bottom and cut across the sandy open country. I grabbed my rifle, slipped on my muck shoes, and took off to cut the distance. Luckily, we had both cameras running, and it couldn't have worked out better. Yeah, there's a black bear right there. It's a real nice one. Gotcha. Let's do it. Let's go get this bear. Primary.
On him.
Done, son. Right from camp. That was all right. We're just getting dressed to go out for the evening hunt. Black bear come right by. Ain't better than that, huh?
Dude, I'm shooting, man. That was awesome.
I love how he's coming.
Woo!
Thanks. What I'm doing, I'm using my DeLorme InReach SE to send a text message to our outfitter, letting him know that we got the black bear down. We don't have any way to take care of this bear and preserve it out here for a long period of time, so it's critical that he gets in his super cub, flies out here tonight or first thing in the morning to pick up the hide and skull and the meat and fly it back to town to put it in the freezer. I'm gonna guess that in probably about 2 hours, that super cub's gonna come rolling in right here on the sandy river bottom and pick up my bear. A great bonus to hunting in this particular area is that both brown bears and black bears inhabit the same country and the seasons run concurrently. I was fortunate enough to buy both the black bear tag and the grizzly tag for this trip. And after 4 days of hunting hard, We finally get one, but right from camp. We got an easy one. I'd just been downstream looking for some sign and tracks down there. I came walking back to camp. Jeremy and Ian and Sam were yelling for me, come on, man, we got bear up here crossing the river bottom. This big dry river bottom is probably about 400 yards wide, 500 at some places. And I saw him coming out of the river bottom across from us, grabbed my rifle, made a stalk that ended, no joke, 80 yards from my tent, laid down prone and got a good shot on him. Followed it up with a second one to get him anchored. And there you have it. 200 yards from my tent, got a great Alaskan black bear down. And I just sent the text out to get the Super Cub coming in to pick him up. We're gonna get him back to the tannery. But what an amazing way to hunt this trip, and the combination hunt possibilities of both doing black bear and brown bear in the same area, absolutely spectacular. Can you pressure wash the inside of your truck out? Probably not. Not unless you have Marathon seat covers.
Go to the Outdoor Channel website and enter to win a set of Marathon seat covers, a proud sponsor of Steve's Outdoor Adventures. Wheeler Engineering Delta Series, the most comprehensive line of AR tools available. Steve's Outdoor Adventures is sponsored by Steiner Optics, CVA, Bergara Custom Barrels and Rifles, UDAP Bear Pepper Spray, Kershaw Knives, Corbon Ammunition, Marathon Seat Covers, the new DeLorme InReach, and Burris Optics and the family of Eliminator Laser Scopes.
If you'd like to book your own guided big game hunting adventure, give my office a call. I will personally take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing trip of a lifetime.
It's late in the week, and Steve and his crew have yet to see a grizzly. Recent success in taking a black bear a mere 200 yards from camp has their spirits high. But with time winding down in their hunt, Steve and Jeremy decide to make a hunt upriver to a choke point where traveling grizzlies would be within range and easy to spot.
Well, once we had the black bear, we felt like that proverbial first fish was in the boat. We feel like the ice was broken, and we really had a good feeling that things were going to change, that our luck had turned.
We decided to go upriver and hunt a place that was really narrow, but we could get a really high vantage point. There were pros and cons to this setup. The pros were that any bears that traveled down were going to be close and easy. The con was that we really couldn't see a lot of country. Nothing else was working, so it was definitely worth a try. We hiked over here to this grass flat tonight from camp, and the bugs are awful. But the bears have been coming down off these mountains at night into this big grass flat to feed on all this green grass. You know, during the daytime, the sun's just too high and too hot, and they just don't move a lot. But the sun just went behind the mountain. From now to about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning is really our good hours of hunting light. You know, the temperature's gonna be lower, the bears are gonna be active, and both grizzlies and black bears will move down into this flat to feed tonight. So we're really hopeful we're gonna get some action.
After another night of not spotting any bears, Steve and the crew retreat to camp with decisions to be made.
I guess that's it. Last night of the hunt, bears didn't show. Conditions were good, but that's the way it goes. We'll get back home, reload. We'll be back up here soon. The next day I got on the DeLorme InReach and sent a text message to my office asking for a weather forecast. The report I got back was the worst possible news. It was going to get hotter, a lot hotter. In fact, it was going to be probably the hottest weather Alaska had seen in recorded times. Well, that was not good news for hunting. So Jeremy and I sat down and discussed it, and we decided to pull the plug on yet another grizzly hunt. So we got on the satellite phone, we called Joe Schuster to come pick us up in the Beaver, and we flew back to Anchorage. But not all was lost. I had taken a beautiful black bear, and I'd spent yet another week in some of Alaska's most beautiful wilderness. And I've got some memories that I'll always remember.
Leaving Alaska without a brown bear was heartbreaking, but if there's one thing I know about Steve, it's that he may leave, but he never quits. And he had our airfare booked to return in the fall before we even left the state.
In fact, if you'd like to book your own Alaskan hunting adventure, remember to give my office a call. I will personally take your calls, answer your questions, and help you book the hunting or fishing trip of a lifetime. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's show. But please remember to join us again next week when we bring you another exciting episode of Steve's Outdoor Adventures.
Steve's Outdoor Adventures would like to thank these local Alaska sponsors for making the Alaska Adventure Series possible. The Millennium Hotel, Barney's Sports Chalet, and Anchorage Satellite Phones.